Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight for my pop up interview. We're going to get started in a few minutes, but I just want to let you guys know, for one, if you have any questions or anything during this video, make sure you go ahead and type them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to try to get to them while we have Shameen on the call today. One thing to note, we are going to be starting in a few minutes, actually right now. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and connect Shameen, and then we'll go ahead and pop-up interview is special because we'll be more about, there she is,
Hi.
and we're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. So got a little bit of a delay here, but without further ado, excuse me, Shameen, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. Give them a little brief intro about your background, your history as an experiential marketing professional, which I've raved about so much, and what you're up to now.
Well, hey guys, I'm Shameen. I actually just finished up a meeting. I'm here at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. This is now where I currently reside. I started my career in experiential marketing about 20 some odd years ago. And I hate saying that because it kind of betrays my age. But I started off, as a sampler for a couple different agencies in New York, and I worked my way up the ladder, working for marketing agencies as an account manager and a national field manager, as well as different types of roles within mostly liquor organizations and doing a lot of experiential with liquor organizations. And then from there, I went on to program management for a staffing agency, as well as uh, there's some feedback right now, um, as well as tour management. So now I'm in the sales industry for liquor, back in liquor again.
Cool, cool. And if for those of you who don't know, she also wrote the foreword for my book. So it was important for me to have someone with a plethora and just extensive knowledge of the industry to provide insight into everything that I was doing. And I look up to her in so many ways. So I just want to thank her for taking the time today because she is a busy woman, for joining us on this live interview. So, what do you think are some of the misconceptions people have about being an EXP and working in this
Well, I think a
industry?
lot of people think that what we do is simple. And also, as you went in through your book, it's really hard to explain what we do. And sometimes I think it's hard to even understand what we do because there's so many different facets about this industry, right? We have the demo people in the
Mhm.
stores. We've got people who might work for a brand in a store, and that those two things are not equivalent at all. And then we've got tours, we've got sampling in the liquor industry, and then, you've got even more sales related things that you might do at a Sam's Club or a Costco. So there's so many different facets in this industry that, we tend to all get lumped together into one big pot, you know? And
Yeah.
while we,
Mhm.
we might have skills for, and really good skills on some of it, we might be, lacking with skills in other things. Like, when you're at a Sam's Club, it's mostly, or like when you're doing a road show, especially, you might be doing more sales oriented programming versus doing a food demo where you're handing out samples.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to say just, but there's a different kind of skill set involved with it.
Hmm. So, working as a brand ambassador, tour manager, team lead, product specialist, now in distribution, what have you noticed at every avenue that you decide to take as an EXP? What are some things people need to, um, some lessons or some tools that they need to take on, hone in on, and actually perfect to be, an EXP
Hmm.
for years? Because you've been doing this for 20 plus years. What do you
Uh,
think, you know, is
of course,
important? Three
I started
things.
doing this when I was 5. I'm only 30. But no, honestly, what most people need to do, especially in this industry and any other industry, is to really learn how to pivot. And this is one of my friend Rye's favorite words, pivot. anything that we do, whether we're talking to a friend of ours or whatnot, you need to understand that sometimes you have to kind of pivot another direction. So especially when we're doing a sampling or some type of sales oriented type of program, you're going to get the no's, but you need to also learn how to pivot that no into a yes, so everything that we do, instead of bringing up the negative and keep and working with that negative, pivot away, figure out a way of getting that consumer to want to engage with you even more so. And you know what? You can turn that no into a yes. And we all know that. We've all experienced that. So we need to learn to really basically just go with the flow, engage with somebody as a human and not be an automaton. And that's another thing. You might learn your 5 brand facts, and then you're just spitting it out the way it was written. Like, no, personalize it. We need to personalize things. We need to kind of take what we're learning about the brand and put it in our vernacular, or also more importantly, put it in your consumer's vernacular. That is so very important.
Brand messaging in a way which makes sense, but also connects with the consumer and creates that overall experience.
Exactly.
Because if they remember that, then that's what they're going to latch on to, and not only create it to be memorable, remember you as the person, because you are, the face of the brand in that particular time or during that moment.
So, like, here's an anecdote that on my last tour, this past year, I was working with Dr. Scholl's as a product specialist, and every time we came into a new market, during the middle of the activation or towards the end of the activation, the brand ambassador would always turn to me and say, "You know what? I've never seen anybody get hugs as much as you do." And it's because everything I do, I really try to inject my own, being personal and my own heart into it. And, that being warm really, really means something to people. Sometimes people are just lonely on top of it. They want to just feel like they made a friend for 5 minutes, so we need to bring a warmth to things. Not all activations that's possible with, but when we can, make it human. We need to make those human connections. That's why they hire us. They don't want machines out there. They want a human connection.
And there's a big difference between being human and being professional.
Absolutely.
So you got to kind of play that fine line and make sure you are still conveying the product information, but doing it in a professional way. Because as we know, we've dealt with, with staff that can kind of go off on a tangent, and you got to reel them back in.
Exactly.
So how do you reel them back? How do you reel them back in?
Well, gosh, it's so hard because, sometimes you don't, you see the connection and you don't really want to interfere with it. But if it's going on a little too long, if it's kind of starting to veer into territory, or people are getting a little too familiar with each other, that's when you kind of, as a manager or team lead, you kind of need to step in and think, hey, what else can we help you with? And kind of move things along in a very professional manner, but also not in such a way that, you're going to put anybody off. Sometimes it's kind of like a gentle reminder. It's like, we've got 50 people online. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, you have those mouthers, as I call them, that will mouth on for hours or even just minutes on end. But one thing I do want to touch on is the fact that you are now on the account manager side. So how does being an account manager different from being in the field and being on tour?
So what I'm doing now is a little bit different. I'm actually in sales now. I'm back into my passion, which is the liquor industry. And I've worked in marketing in the liquor industry. I'm just on sales now. But when I was an account manager, and also I was in staffing as well. People have a vision of people who work in a marketing agency offices of going, we have our feet up on a table, just kind of, filing our nails and doing a lot of nothing. Yes, exactly. And that's not the case. I mean, I can't tell you how many nights when I did work in the office that I was there till 11 midnight, working very hard on either staffing the program or actually, working with our client to making sure that that our tour had what they needed on their next stop. So, there's a lot of hard work, and it's not always fun, especially on the staffing side. Right now, people have this misconception that staffing is just, the be all end all. It's so easy. It's not. You have
Yeah.
clients that want specific things, and sometimes most outlandish requests, and you're like, yeah, that's not happening. And they want it in
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, and you're like, you can't turn on a dime. So you have to, staffing agents have to, appease their clients, of course, but it's at the same time they need to
Right. Right.
guide their clients as well, and it's not always easy to guide them. You have to manage your client's expectations, but all at the same time, how many times have you or I on a footprint had 5 people
Mm-hmm.
not show up? That's not easy. So
Yeah.
as the panic attacks for us in the field that we get when people don't show, the booking agents on the other side of the phone, and they feel like they're claustrophobic. They're in a stranglehold because they can't do anything but make
Mm-hmm.
phone calls or text or whatever. Because honestly, all you want to do is get to the activation. And if I'm in Las Vegas and it's in
Yeah.
New York, there's nothing you can do. So
Yeah.
sometimes people have a feeling that bookers just throw their hands up and say, "Oh well," it's not the case. They work
Mm-hmm.
tirelessly,
Yeah.
and it's really, really frustrating. So,
Yeah, I have a newfound respect for people that own an agency and staffing coordinators, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, as you're saying. And even like on the tour side, when people don't show up, you immediately have to go into plan B and figure out how you're gonna, account for that person not being in that position. Okay, I'll have to fill in and work today. Okay, what if they can't find a person to fill in? You have to go ahead and make the necessary adjustments to be able to activate and ensure the event is executed to its full extent if they don't get anybody in.
mhm.
So always having that plan B and preparing for worst case, which in the field it happens all the time. You have to always be on alert and do that, because it'll help you to be more efficient and to plan for those
Exactly.
times.
Like also, like when you're on the agency side of things, the backups are not paid for by the client. It's paid for by the agency. And a lot of people also have this misconception that agencies, have this exorbitant amount of money on contracts that are worth, 50 to 75% of the hourly. And it's like, that's really not the case. I've worked for large staffing agencies and I've worked for small staffing agencies. And of course there's, depending on the tour and what's going on, the rates change, but there's not all the budget that everyone thinks it's available, and that's a serious
Yeah.
misconception that people have.
Mm, gotcha. So now you're not in the field anymore. You're not on tours. Do you miss being on tour? Like, what do you miss about tour
It's
life?
so hard. I honestly, I do miss being on tour, and hopefully I can get another product specialist gig come up. But at the same time, I have a full-time job, and I have to take care of my elderly parents. So it's good to be here and to help my
Hmm.
parents. And for me, it's everything that I could be here for them. But I'm not going to tell you I don't miss being on the road. I really, really do. It breaks my heart, but I
Yeah.
promised myself when I started this new job that this year I'm going to take it easy, because there was a period in time where I was working 7 days a week for 6 months, and I kind of got
Wow.
sick. So I'm going to, I'll
Yeah.
pick up gigs here and there around town. And, I have Arizona, Los Angeles, and here in Las Vegas nearby, so I can always pick something up if I so want
Hmm.
to. But
Hmm.
I'm almost kind of starting to enjoy my weekends.
We don't have those on tour.
No,
So your weekend work and your weekdays are your chill days. So
exactly.
you got it. You
Exactly.
got it.
I mean, gosh, there's festivals going on the weekends now that I actually can go to. You're like, wow, this is cool, and I don't have to work. What?
That's awesome. See, you left out whether you know it or not. You have left
I've been
out.
blessed. I've been
Um,
blessed.
so one takeaway from your last tour that you didn't know. What did you
Oh
learn?
my gosh, that's so hard, because after every tour, I have always learned something, and a lot of times it's something about me personally. Um, I think probably the last tour I was on, and it was a national tour. I think from that tour, I learned perseverance, even more so than I've ever learned in
Mm,
my life. I've learned that, I came in on something that was poorly constructed, poorly thought out, and put together terribly. And then I had to literally break it and put it back together again. And it still wasn't to my satisfaction, but it was a lot more easier to deal with. And I had to persevere. I learned the art of the art of persuasion even better. I learned really to manage my own expectations. And that's a big part of it.
So, yeah, yeah. So what kept you going though? Because sometimes you'll get on the tour, things are always unorganized. Not always, but on some tours, when the account managers or the agency doesn't do what they're supposed to do, like what keeps you wanting to stay there and not just say, hey, in a week or so, put in my 2 weeks and I'm gonna hop on another tour? Like what kept you there?
So I was raised with the mantra of never give up. And
Yeah.
it's a religious mantra for me, but it's also my mother instilling me on never giving up. And I've had some experiences on other tours where, we had, personal differences and whatnot. And, there were times that things were getting so bad, it almost came to blows. So, but you never give up. You got to figure it through. And sometimes you need some time apart with people or time apart from what's going on. And for me, when everything was going wrong with that last tour of mine, I really had to kind of step away and just kind of reevaluate things and reevaluate my life. And for me, at that point in time when I did, it became a challenge. And I like games, so I wanted to win this game.
Yeah. So all my tour managers out there who may be on a tour currently and you're not so happy with how things are going or the way things are panning out, have those conversations with your account team or the people that are actually facilitating the program and voice your concerns in a professional way and try to stick it out because I'm the same way. Like I don't really like to quit things. If we start something, I want to finish it out and make it better. Leave it better than I came,
Absolutely.
right? So that's like the motto. So sticking it out, even if it's just like a one-off program where you're a market manager, try to work through the kinks and find different ways from all the experience that you have to make it better.
Absolutely.
So,
It's like the mantra when you're working any event, leave your area cleaner than when you found it, right? So it's basically you take
yes.
that kind of mantra and elevate it to tour manager level. When anyone's on a footprint, even if you're a BA or a runner or whatever, always think about what you're doing as it's your event. What can you do to make that
Yeah.
event better? And that's how you'll elevate yourself to that next level. And if you really think about it that way, it's own your business, right? We always tell each other, own our business, own that footprint, own that event.
Yeah.
And that's how people will rise up and get to the next level of this, EXP industry. We all want to get to that next level. So you really need to think about it in that manner.
Yeah. And that leads into my next question, which was like, what advice would you give to any new BAs? Luke said, well said. So he's loving all your feedback tonight. And I am too. It's great to hear it coming from somebody that's been in the industry so long that actually understands, what's needed and what's required. So 3 more questions, and you could probably knock these 2 out together, then one more, and I'm finished.
Okay.
What would you give somebody who's entering the industry as a BA? What is the one piece of advice you would give them? Somebody like me and you who's been in the industry for a while, maybe in a rut, don't know if they want to continue or they don't have the same passion like they did when they first began. What advice would you give those 2 people on the opposite ends of the
Well,
spectrum?
first and foremost, I think we should always reevaluate what we're doing. Even if you're happy, there's always going to be something that you can always reevaluate and make better. So just if you're kind of in a rut, maybe just get out of it for a while. Do contracting with something else. Maybe you can pick up, take some courses or whatnot. With there's a high burnout rate with our industry because we're always on, right? We're kind of, we are marketing, we're sales, we're all that. We are always on. So sometimes you really need to take a step back and just relax a little bit, take a week off and sleep, because sometimes I think we all need that. And
Yes.
reevaluate. Think about what your life goals are, right? So it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not easy. It really isn't easy, you know. But for somebody who wants to be in this industry, you really need to make sure you understand the different aspects and find out where your wheelhouse is. Not
Yeah.
everyone's going to be a tour manager, and that's not a bad thing. You know, that really isn't. But
Yeah.
not everyone can be that tour manager or would want to be a tour manager, because
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know about all the craziness that's involved in behind the scenes. You know,
Yeah. Yes.
before the electronic logging, how many times were you asked to drive from, Texas to New York in a day and a half, breaking massive DOT laws on the way? So we it's
Yes.
there are things that that are behind the scenes are just not pleasant. But you know what? Being a
Mm-hmm.
BA is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. We have the best jobs on earth, and representing the
Mm-hmm.
greatest brands on earth. Mostly the greatest brands on earth, most of the time.
Yes.
But we have a great deal of fun. One things I would like to tell brand ambassadors out there is, one thing that's always been my pet peeve is showing up to a promotion already branded out with another company's logos. You show off your
Right.
Apple, your Apple knapsack with your Dodge Ride and Drive apparel and whatnot. You're just branded to the extreme. And great, I know you want to show off all the brands you've worked for, but it might not be appropriate, because
Yeah.
God forbid you stained your branded shirt. You're going to have to wear a white shirt, and if it's branded with something on it, it's not a great thing. And also, it's not a great look to see all these
Yeah.
brands on a footprint. We're there to work for
Mm-hmm.
whoever it is that day we're working for. So we just need to kind of take a step back,
Mm-hmm.
and dress in our white shirt, our white tank, and our black pants, or whatever it is they're calling for, and always
Mm-hmm.
having a backup with you. And I always carry
Yes.
my BA kit with me. I have gloves if
Mm-hmm.
we're helping with tear down. I'll bring some extra. I'll bring an extra first aid kit, because God forbid something happens. But we need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we are bringing all the essentials that we need. I can't tell you. I mean, we've all seen online with all the groups like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have enough money for lunch, or because I was
Yeah.
expecting lunch. Never expect. Bring your food,
Yes.
bring your
Yes.
water, bring a couple extra dollars for
Yes.
parking. I mean, I know it
Mm-hmm.
kind of sucks to say that, but we need to really anticipate our needs.
Yeah.
It's our needs, and we are
Yeah.
responsible for ourselves.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You said enough right there. So, Simone asked the question, how long did it take for you to transition from a BA to a tour manager?
So I took a very circuitous route. Um, so when I first started as a BA, was I went from BA to a local market manager rather quickly, and then I went up the ladder in agency life very, very quickly, and then I left it and I went back to being a brand ambassador. And then within a month of going back to being a brand ambassador in New York, I was a tour manager again. So
Now, is that common? Let's put, is that common what you did?
Oh, I would say no, because this was the
Mhm.
infancy of experiential marketing. It wasn't even called that when I was working in it. And remind you, I was 5 when I started doing this. So, so it was really the infancy. Guerrilla marketing was just started. They just started calling it guerrilla marketing. This was all brand spanking new. There weren't many tours, and most of the people who were brand ambassadors were actually mostly actors and models who were doing this
Hmm.
between gigs. So there really wasn't a lot of people who were tour managers or who were professional brand ambassadors. So I took an interest, and I was speaking to all the right people. I guess I was saying all the right things, and I got very lucky. But the thing is, if you do, it can happen. It can happen now. You just
Yeah.
have to take a good interest, and you have to prove yourself. And it's not being
Hmm.
proving yourself on Facebook, because that's just for all of us to make
Yeah.
ourselves look good. You need to prove yourself to your tour manager,
Hmm.
to your booking agent, to the marketing agency, and they're going to take an investment
Yeah.
in you. So when they do hire tour
Yeah.
managers and whatnot, we all need to understand it. This is a business and they're making an investment in their employees. So I
Exactly.
invested my time into
Yeah.
learning. And you know, when people
Mm-hmm.
complain about taking the 15 minutes of reading the brand manual and wanting it paid, I usually take that 15 minutes and I take another hour going on their website reading all about what the brand is. You know, because
Exactly.
I want to be the most
Exactly.
learned person on that website, on that footprint rather. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And it's funny because when you are managing programs, you can automatically spot that person when they come on. As you know, anybody as a tour manager, when you have those BAs that really take ownership of the actual event, even if it's just a 4-hour activation, and they come in and they're polished and they're ready to go, those are the people that I hone in and
mm-hmm,
gravitate to after and say, hey, if I have anything else, I'm going to make sure that I refer you. If I'm in this market, I'm going to make sure that I look out for you because I see myself or I see the qualities of a great
exactly.
EXP in you. And that's what it's about.
Exactly. And it's more than just
Yeah.
networking. It's proving that you are worth your salt.
Yes. Yep. That's true. Last question
Okay.
before we go. 3 things you dislike to see on a resume. You've hired staff, you've fired staff. So what do you dislike to see on a resume?
Um, ooh. Well, you know, one my biggest probably pet peeve is a poorly constructed resume, especially when it's going on to 5 pages long. We really don't need to know that. You know, yes, it's nice to see the brands you've worked on, but like, let's just make it a little bit easier to read. And you know,
Mhm.
my resume is constructed that it has my information on it. I've highlighted. I can't put 25 years worth of promotions on my resume. It would be 15 pages long.
Right.
But what I've done is I always change my resume to what I want. So if I want that auto show, I'll make sure I highlight all my auto experience on it, along with the various management and
Mhm.
trade shows I've done. But those would be my highlights. If it's a liquor program, it's going to
Yeah.
be the same thing. So what I would suggest to people out there is to, especially if you've done this for a long time, you've represented many brands, always change your resume to suit the job you want. And that's true for anybody
Right.
in the regular job market, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
number one. Number two, let's just make sure that formatting is there. And what I also would recommend to people, if they don't expressly say Microsoft Word, lock it into a PDF document, because it's
Yeah.
you get the weird, you know, line breaks and whatnot, and strange characters come in at times. It just doesn't look good. I mean, it's nothing to the person. It's just the way it transmitted. So if you can, lock the
Right.
document. And then lastly, uh, this is not necessarily resumes, but it goes with resumes. Pictures. Um,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
appropriate pictures and there's not appropriate pictures. I think we've all seen some pretty inappropriate pictures in the
Yes.
past. Um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just make sure, like, you know, if they're asking you for 3, 5 pictures, whatever it may be, that number one, you might, you know, unless they're asking for a lingerie, that you are fully clothed. And, you know,
What?
not 16 people in a picture and no Snapchat duck lips. So
Yeah. Yeah.
appropriate professional pictures. It doesn't have to be professionally made. We can all, you know, you can take a picture or have a friend take a picture as long as it's clear and has the best representation of who you are. Oh,
Yeah.
last pet peeve,
Absolutely.
back to
Yes.
resumes. Make sure you have an appropriate email address. I have seen
Yes.
many
Yes.
inappropriate, and yeah, they might be funny and fun, but save that for your friends. Create another email,
Yeah.
and all your professional stuff goes to that email.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I've seen some crazy ones too, and I'm just like really, and then it doesn't. Sometimes it I don't know when the person works, it kind of is like, I address it sometimes at the end of events and just give them that word of advice, like, hey, you might want to go ahead and change your email to be booked for future
Mhm.
opportunities. But nonetheless, like you see some crazy emails and it kind of throws you off for that moment or so. So.
Or it becomes fodder in the office.
I was gonna say, yeah, yeah. Everybody just talks about it in the office. So yeah, and I mean that is so true. That culture in the industry with EXPs having, it's a small, tight-knit group. It's the same with account managers. You guys all talk. talk about, EXPs and different things within, that go on a day-to-day
Mhm.
basis. So people need to understand that, word gets around fast, good or bad. It could go either way.
Especially if if your friend of yours is hiring for another event or they're asking for people. I think it's also
Mhm.
on a brand ambassador level. You're making recommendations to bookers. You're making recommendations to other friends. Just make sure that when you are making those recommendations, that that person understands full well that they're putting I would be putting my name on the line for you. So
Yeah,
show up,
yeah,
be professional,
yeah.
and don't cause any issues, and bring the best person you are to
Hmm.
the footprint. So I think that's something that we
Yeah.
all forget at
Hmm.
times.
Yeah, reputation is everything. And my three P's: professionalism, presentable, and making sure that you're personable. Like those are the three things that you have to,
Hmm.
make sure that you kind of abide by and that you keep, in the back of your mind at any time when you're executing an event at any capacity.
Exactly.
So, so yeah, but I'm gonna let you go because I know you had a long
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to
I'm
speak with
gonna
me.
I'm gonna finish with
And
a picture for you. Hold on a second. I'm gonna turn this around so you can see the love.
oh, yeah, she's in the Venetian, by the way. So she's just got done with the meeting, and she took time tonight to have a conversation with us. So I appreciate your advice. I'm pretty sure it's going to help a lot of people in the industry, and we need to do this more often,
Absolutely.
So yes, but enjoy the rest of your night.
You
Thank you,
too.
thank you, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
How do